Hi there. I want to talk a little bit more about me because this is my confession for Friday, and also about my website and all my writings on Gnosticism. So, very briefly, I am a proud and rebellious spirit. But the question arises, and I thought about it this morning, is against whom am I rebelling? And to whom am I presenting or displaying my pride? And thirdly, what could really lie behind this proud and this pride and rebelliousness? I suppose, I don't really know against whom I'm rebelling. Actually, to tell the truth, I don't really know who it is. Maybe it's just the shadows of my mind, all the imaginations of a depressive. And maybe I'm showing pride to that inside me, which would do me down and take all my pride away or take all my self-esteem away. So perhaps that's it. But I think also what lies beneath this pride and rebelliousness is fear. And as the angel said, fear not, neither be afraid to the magi, or to the actual shepherds, I think, wasn't it? A lot of people were frightened of the angel when it came upon them in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. But it is fear. It's fear of the angel. It's fear of the message. It's fear of the Logos. It's fear of death. It's fear of life. It's fear of other people, for sure. Fear of myself. Fear of my own thoughts. Fear. Even the very word fear. It's like a frightening word, fear, isn't it? It's like rhymes with ear and dear, um, and other words it could rhyme with, clear, because there are things to be frightened of, obviously. I mean, that's what we're hardwired to think, to believe, and to know, in fact, that there are definite, real things to be frightened of in life. So they say you have to deal with your fear. But perhaps you can also use your fear to some higher purpose. I've no idea what that might be. But anyway, so that's one topic out of the way. The second one is about my website and about all the quite a lot of materials concerning Gnosticism on my website and in my free PDF books that you can download from the site. And but I don't have any confidence in these writings, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a bit like in mathematics. I mean, you start off with a line of math, and then you've got to come to a conclusion, and you've got to show all your workings in between. You've got to show how you arrived at your conclusion. This is if I can remember my maths that I did at school. And it could be that, the writings, what the workings in between actually show a different answer. So you start off with a mathematical problem or premise, and it could be that you as you work down through, you're going to come up with a different conclusion to what you thought you did, what you thought you had come up with. You see, because the workings of the math problem don't actually support the finished statement. They actually point in a different direction. And I think that's always true of people's writings. And people's consciousness obviously evolves over time. But then that leaves, the validity of the workings. Where does that leave them? I mean, if you thought they were pointing in one direction and they are in fact pointing in another direction, how valid then are the workings themselves? I suppose you have to put in a sort of caveat in the front of the book to say that these are all just you know paths on the way to somewhere. That all these poems and essays and polemics and rants and all that they're just signposts for me to arrive at a certain conclusion by the end, if indeed there is any conclusion to arrive at. But I mean, I'm trying my best to hone in on the truth of the matter, because I think it's important that there is a truth of the matter, because that will influence the methods and the contemplations that other people uh, are recommended to follow. And if you're very confused in yourself, you're going to confuse other people, and they're not going to take away very much from your writings, except that that's interesting. He went from A to B, and then he went to C after that, or then he went to seed after that, which is often the case as well. I mean, it's like, as I say, I'm studying the Red Book by Carl Gustav Jung, which wasn't published till 2008, and posthumously, obviously. And he didn't want his private writings in the black books, which then became the Red Book, to actually be published at all, it seemed to me, because I suppose he thought they were a bit too weird, and they wouldn't sit very well with his colleagues and peers in the scientific psychoanalytic community. They certainly wouldn't sit very well in modern psychiatry and psychology today, humanist psychology. They'd be gobbledygook, really, as far as modern psychologists and psychiatrists are concerned. I mean, modern psychologists are just sitting there letting you rant on about your feelings, even though in the end your feelings don't count for anything, which they probably don't. But then sometimes they say, oh, well, of course, your feelings are valid. But basically, the psychiatrist is the one with the actual panacea. They just give you antidepressants and antipsychotics and write the prescription, and away you go. They're only concerned about the human brain, as it were, as a neurological functioning machine. And it's not neurologically functioning. If it's dysfunctional, then the idea is that the drugs make it functional again. Simple, really. A bit like, if your pancreas doesn't work, then you've got to have insulin for the rest of your life. And if your brain isn't working properly, you've got to take antidepressants or antipsychotics. Job done, really. It's very efficient. I don't know where nurse psychology comes into it. It really is just sort of talking shop. It doesn't mean a thing, really, because what sort of possible. I mean, once you've got the brain chemistry sorted out, then you're going to be okay, and you're not going to really bother with your feelings anymore or what they mean anymore. So I'm not quite sure where modern psychology even fits in at all. I think it's all gone, really, hasn't it? It's like philosophy. Philosophy is just semantics. Psychology is just window dressing for psychiatry. You don't want to tell people that they've got nothing more than a brain. So we've still got to pretend that there is some kind of meaning to this all, when in fact there's complete meaninglessness, and it's all just brain chemistry and science trying to figure out how to balance the brain chemistry so that somebody can function in life more or less all right, So against which CJ Carl Gustav Jung is a sort of pioneer. He's a sort of prophet, actually, because I think in his writings he actually predicts that this would be the future of psychiatry. In fact, it would just all be brain chemicals and discussion about brain chemicals, and there won't be anything left really for the soul or for God or for the ultimate meaning of life at all. So he kind of predicts this, and he is a pioneer before his time, as it were. He's a pioneer before he's needed, even. But now he's needed more than ever, really. Or is he? I mean, I don't know. But I leave that up to you to decide that. But in any case, my fear is real. Is it? Well, is it real, or is it just brain chemicals? Does it have any basis in some kind of metaphysics, or is it fear of metaphysics, or is it fear of the unknown, or is it fear of something that might upset its kind of safety consciousness, its safe consciousness of this reality, and it fears to be upset. Fears the apple cart is going to be turned over by certain data that the soul, that the intuition receives, and it isn't very happy about that. So obviously there's resistance there. And my writings, are they just more or less babble, really? And there's more truth to be found in my doodles that I'm doing now than in anything that you could possibly write down. And in fact, there is a thing called art therapy, which I suppose this is, isn't it? What I'm doing now is art therapy. It isn't art, obviously. It's art therapy. So, I just basically leave this whole discussion in the air, really, because I don't know what the answer is at all.